this is a question I've kind of been exploring. Truthfully, it's the distinction in philosophy between something called realism and something called nominalism. So realism is the idea that the things that we see outside of us have some reality, like they are real patterns that exist outside of us. And nominalism is more to say that we don't truly have a real relationship with what's outside of us, or if we do, it's very like fractured in a certain sense. Like we just see sort of a prototype of what's around outside of us, sort of like a kind of representation, but it's very imprecise and prone to being arbitrarily human or something like that. And nominalism comes from the word name, so we just put names on stuff and call it a day. So would you say that we have a real relationship with the things outside of us? Like, are there, like, is that tree, for example, is that really a tree outside of us, or is it just like appear like a tree in our human perception?
This is getting dangerously close to the philosophy of maybe none of us exist. We're just one jellyfish floating along and hallucinating everything.
Sort of like solipsism, like no one else exists but me, like I can't prove it, kind of thing.
Kinda, yeah. It kind of feels like that, but like.
Did I start the camera?
We're gonna figure that out.
I must have. Okay, I get so weird about that. Okay. I got started overthinking. Okay, yeah, sorry. Keep going.
But yeah, in my honest opinion, if you can feel something, if you can see something, if you can feel something, if you can reach out and touch something, it probably exists.
Okay, so like most likely, sort of.
Yeah. If it's just like my brain being like, hey, this thing probably exists, I can see it and I can feel it, but it actually doesn't exist, then if I can't prove it doesn't exist, but I think it exists, then it probably exists. And like going off of what one of my favorite authors said, Randall Munroe, it's a very quick philosophy tip. We actually can't prove if anything exists, but it's really not nice to say that other people don't exist.
Yeah. So there's a certain functionality aspect to it. It's like I literally can't function in the world without trusting my faculties.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just the fact that it's like it's just easier to trust your faculties, that they have something real to tell you, and you're not just like dealing with illusions all the time.
Yeah, like it's just easier and just nicer to just think that this microphone, I can feel it, I can touch it, I can see it, it probably exists.
It's a microphone.
It's a microphone.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that constrains reality that doesn't have a physical aspect to it that we can observe?
What do you mean?
I don't know. I don't know the question because it depends on how you think of it.
Like, what do you mean by constraining reality, basically?
I mean in the sense of, like, all of us are students, right? Like, we all, well, not me, I guess.
Well, we'll go with it.
But, like, we're all students, and so we subscribe to a sort of unity of being at a university. This is kind of what was brought up in the last conversation I had. And so there's something there that exists, this unity that binds us together as students.
Yeah.
Is that in itself sort of arbitrary because it can't be like physically observed, or is there something real about that pattern too?
Well, I'd say it is real, because like you wouldn't go up to someone in a classroom and be like, you're not actually a student, because we can't perceive that. Okay. Like the community of being with someone is real, even though you can't like physically feel it.
Okay, fair enough. So there is these unseen things that bind identities together, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. But where does that end? Like, is there some sort of spiritual reality that binds everyone together, or is that too far?
I don't think I don't think that's too far actually, because everyone has a human experience. Everyone is in and of themselves a person.
Yeah.
And when you really boil it down, everyone has the same wants and goals: to be happy, to be together, and to live their best life.
So yeah, there's a sort of commonality of desire.
Yeah, everyone has their own commonality, and when you really boil it down, we're all the same. We're all going through the same shit, and we all want the same things.
Yeah. So everyone has. But what do you do with the fact that some people, at least, present as having different desires? Are they just trying to find the same things in a sort of different way?
Well, everyone has their own ways of going about things. Maybe one person wants to be, I don't know, an amazing artist. Another person wants to be a songwriter. People want to be community. People want to be alone. Everyone has their own wants and desires, yes, but when you really boil it down, everyone still has those desires. Everyone at least wants something.
Okay, yeah. They want something, that's why they're moving. If they didn't want something, they would just stay in one place.
Yeah.
Because why move anywhere if you have everything you want?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. And maybe that even boils down to, I need something to eat because otherwise I'll die.
Kinda, yeah. But
something like that. So, okay, how do you extend it away from the sort of evolutionists that would come in and be like, oh, it's all just surviving and reproducing? Would you agree with that person?
I would not agree with that person because, I could simply go up to people who are like that and be like, so you just want to eat, sleep, and reproduce and nothing else? That seems like a very boring and sad existence. Okay.
So there's an element of adventure.
There's an element of adventure and, again, desire of wanting.
Okay.
That's, again, different for everyone, but
so
everyone still has it.
I studied psychology.
Yes.
And as far as identifying what makes a person, there's a sort of Freudian idea that it seems like you are articulating as to where people are defined by what they desire.
Oh.
Would you say that's an accurate way to identify a person, or is it more complex? I mean,
it's a lot more complex. And being honest, I do not align with Freud. I do not want to align with Freud. He was a lot of things, and I'm a lot of things against that. But
perfectly fine. I guess I was just merely bringing up that concept of people being defined by their desires.
Fair enough. And people are not only defined by what they desire. Okay. It's also what they do, how they do it, where they've been, what they've done.
Okay, yeah.
It's about who they are, who they have been, and who they want to be.
Yeah, well, okay, cool. That's pretty cohesive, I'd say. Yeah. So, is it just about them, or to what degree are people defined by what's outside of them?
That's a hard one. I'd say if you had to define someone by what's around them, well,
can they self-identify, or should someone's identity be identified? That's funny. Should someone's identity be
based on what's around them?
What's around them, or conceived that way?
I don't know. A lot of these I could just say I don't know, and
well, that's okay. We don't know these things perfectly.
No, but to describe someone as a concept of what's around them, I do when I heard that, my brain immediately pinged, the concept of everyone has an impact, where no matter what you do, you will always leave an impact on this world, but that impact isn't necessarily bad.
Okay.
Where, what you do is the aspect of what you've done and who you have been is definitely based on the world around you and what you've done to it or what it has done to you.
Yeah.
But that, but it also pertains to what you want to do and what you want to do with that. So it's kind of both.
So what you're saying essentially is that this idea of the things outside of you define mainly your past and present, but not necessarily your future.
Kind of, a little bit.
Or they're more interconnected with the past. Something like that.
A little bit, because
Okay.
again, going back to what I said before, what you do shapes the world, and the world shapes what you do.
Okay.
So, again, the future, past, both the past, present, and the future are based on what everything happens around you.
Okay.
But you also have the same impact on everything else.
Okay, so you are defined by what happens around you, but you also have an impact. And is that impact sort of arbitrary, or is there do you subscribe to free will?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's something volitional about your impact.
Mm-hmm.
And is there ways to act in essentially good or bad ways, or is it sort of based on consequence?
Ways to act in good and bad ways.
And that's maybe dipping into the philosophy of like either consequentialism, like your actions are just based on consequences, or sort of like there are good and bad actions. I guess how do you see those ideas? And you don't have to sit on a particular side of the fence, but like how do you see those ideas?
At this point, the fence is spherical, so there is no good or bad side of the fence. But
Okay.
in that same vein, depending on anyone's perspective, there is no good or bad perspective or good or bad actions.
Yeah.
Like, from basically everyone's perspective, what the Nazis did was probably damn bad.
Yeah.
But from someone like Hitler's perspective, what they did was nationalism and helping the German people. So
Yeah.
again, there's no really good, there's no really one universal like perspective.
Yeah, well, that's difficult because
Yeah.
it seemed like in the what was it called? The Nuremberg trials.
Mm-hmm.
There was a sort of global, like granted, a global unity around, okay, this is wrong.
Yeah.
What Hitler did was wrong.
Yes.
Like officially wrong. Not just like we think it's wrong, but like officially wrong, right?
Yeah.
So would you say that like there's something ontological about that, like something real about that distinction? I mean, obviously them identifying it doesn't necessarily make it real, but like unless your opinion is sort of relativistic. What do you think?
Again, I'm gonna have to say I don't know about that one because,
That's fine. Yeah.
again, I am not a psych major. I don't know anything. I don't
and
know.
that's more on the side of philosophy.
I don't know
Yeah.
anything about philosophy, basically.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, those, like, basically there was a universality of, yeah, this was wrong, and I'm not
Yeah.
trying, like, let the record show. I'm not trying to say the Nazis were good.
I totally understand that. Yeah. No, you made that very clear.
Yeah. But, yeah, that was mainly from, like, going back to that aspect of everything outside of us. That was that was everyone collectively coming together to say, yeah, this was wrong.
Yeah.
And while there is no like universal perspective on anything, that was probably the closest we'll get to a universal perspective.
Yeah. So is there something about morality that's defined societally, something like that, or defined by what people agree on collectively?
Yes. Like,
Okay.
I want to go back to, like, I am first and foremost a writer. I write a ton of creative stuff.
That's cool.
And like a lot of my characters would be considered morally gray at best.
Yeah, sure. There's not this distinction.
But that's from basically society's perspective. From let's say my current character's perspective, they're just doing what it takes to survive in their environment.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of, say, a lawyer, they are wanted for like a lot of burglary. But
yeah. Okay.
so it
Yeah.
again depends on your perspective, but there is a sort of like societal aspect to morality.
Okay. Like it's kind of inextricably societally based.
Yeah.
So, I guess this is an interesting point. The whole idea that like in a kingdom, in this sort of hierarchical system, like let's call it an ancient kingdom because there's no real king. I mean, there is one, but
Long story, but
either way, in this kingdom, like what allows some sort of prophet or some sort of outsider or maybe an insider, but just like kind of on lesser on this hierarchy, to say, "King, you are wrong." You know, like why can he say that even though the king has more like societal power and jurisdiction than him?
well,
Or can he say that? Like,
he absolutely can, because
Yeah.
I wanted to bring this up,
so it's
but
just kind of a matter of perspective.
I wanted to bring this up, but I didn't, because I'm a fool. But
Yeah.
but morality has both a societal aspect and an internal aspect, because
Okay.
like most people, if you ask them, will be like, yeah, killing someone for the sake of killing them is a bad idea, is a bad thing, because it makes them feel not good.
Yeah, there's a sort of conscience.
Yeah.
So just like the whole idea of that tree being real or this microphone being real, do
Yeah.
you think that conscience has a sort of reality too?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And so there's something real about that conscience. Do you think there's a unified way that it guides people across individuals?
No.
Okay.
Because one person's conscience would say, no, doing that is wrong. And then another person's conscience will be like, no, doing that is right.
Okay.
And that could either mean something as bad as murder to something as innocuous as liking the same gender as you. But
Okay,
then, yeah.
So there wouldn't be like a correct way to train this conscience, or it's not like it doesn't have a right or wrong way of being formed. It's just sort of similar in the sense of like everybody is different, has a different conscience, and their conscience has a validity because it's theirs.
I want to say, depending on your perspective, you could be like, again, everyone's perspective is different. You can't just go up to someone and say your conscience is wrong.
Yeah.
And especially in like today's times, you really want to, for some people, and for some people they want to go up to you and say your conscience is wrong, but you can't. Because
so here's an interesting thing. How do we explain the relationship between the internal sort of conscience aspect of morality and the external societal aspect of morality? Do those things have a interaction?
There is definitely an overlap, because again, like the societal morality mainly forms as a product of multiple people's morality aligning, because
otherwise there would be no society.
Because otherwise there wouldn't be no society. Yeah.
Okay. And so this whole idea of the prophet saying, "King, you are wrong," like they are expressing their internal conscience, and the king is sort of this representation of the society.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if there's some sort of revolution, then there's this correction that the conscience has to correct for the broader society, and maybe that would require a bunch of people agreeing with this prophet, and then like physically taking this king out of power. Does that fit?
It makes sense. It does make sense, and it does definitely fit.
Okay.
But most of the time,
so
like,
would that make, so go ahead.
Most of the time, societal like morality changes a lot.
Yeah.
Because a good 30 or 50 years ago, it was like racism was a lot more prevalent and a lot more like morally okay than today.
How many years ago? I didn't hear you.
50 years ago.
50 years ago.
50 or 30 years ago, honestly, both. But today, like we're in a time of amazing, like, of morality basically taking a high ground, kind of, where we're more okay and we're more like open to new and different things. And of course there are some people who there's a lot of people who are against that. There's
more
a lot
like
of people,
conservative-minded people.
Exactly. Well, conservative has taken a long,
a weird connotation.
a weird connotation.
I mean, like attitudinally.
Attitudinally, yes.
So okay, sure. So is the highest virtue then something like openness and something like letting all things be included?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I would say yes.
So what's the end state? Is it like this kind of all-including sort of society where everything is accepted? Is it utopian, or is utopia sort of a inaccessible thing?
Being honest, all of humanity, looking back 100,000, however long you want to look, the utopia has never existed. There will always be strife. Taking a talking point from Team Fortress 2, as long as two people are left on the planet, someone is going to want someone dead.
Okay.
But
sort of
the end point, the end goal, at least in my eyes, would being, and again going back to a talking point from before, having like a community that includes everyone.
Okay.
In like,
so sort of the opposite of like what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I kind of interrupted you.
No, you're good.
What were you gonna say?
I have no idea.
Okay, yeah, sort of like the opposite of like choosing between one over the other, like discrimination, like sort of the opposite of that. Is there anything like, and obviously the word discrimination has horrible connotations,
but like,
is there anything that you should discriminate for? Like, what about psychopaths?
The term is psychopath.
Or sociopaths, for example.
That term has basically become useless in today's society, but
just like the strange, like
the strange, culture. The weird. I would say, paradoxically, kind of.
Okay.
Because like if you take the term discrimination, and this is like a massive stretch, I think, as choosing one thing over another for the good of everything. Yes, I think we would need just a little bit of discrimination to like get better society, but then as time goes on, we can and definitely should bring that down to basically include everyone, to try and help
even like the psychopaths, even if they're dangerous, like when you just try to like help them participate in the way that they can, sort of.
Yes. Like, even if someone has shown, I'm talking too much. At this point the FBI is on its way for me, but basically,
this is a free speech zone.
Yeah. I don't know how to say this, but yes, even if someone has shown themselves to be dangerous or something like that, there should still be a way to incorporate them into the utopian society that I was talking about earlier.
But what if they really don't want to? Like, what if they're like, I don't even want anything to do with you? Like, at that point, would it be almost unconsensual? Like, no, you're part of the society. We are including you. You know what I mean?
At that point, if someone doesn't want to be included with someone, but then they're, well...
Yeah, I guess what do you do with those people?
At that point, I'd say if someone says they don't want something, like, base philosophy, like, what I believe in. If someone says they're something, they're probably that something.
Okay.
And
Benefit of the doubt sort of idea.
and if that person says, I don't want to be part of this giant mega society, then yeah, they don't need to be part of that giant mega society.
Okay, and how is this mega society going to be governed? Like, is there going to be like a authority structure that sort of lays down the law to some degree, or is it's going to be this like 100% democracy? Like everyone has their own choice.
I'd say 100% democracy is definitely the best solution, and that is like the more
go ahead.
and that's like objectively the more democratic a society, the more everyone has a say, and the better off everyone as a whole is.
So how about this? This is an interesting question now that's kind of leading from this.
No.
So
Go ahead.
can the broader populace be wrong? Like, can the majority of the population be mistaken or vote something that's not right? Or if the majority of the population does want something as they say themselves, not like, will that just intrinsically be what is right?
I would say I have an example of that, but of that happening, but I remembered that well, I don't know your political affiliation, so I don't know how okay it is for me to say this, but 8 years ago with Trump being elected, that was definitely a not good thing that happened for the majority of well, not the majority, for basically every minority. It was not a good thing, and we're still feeling the effects of it like almost a decade later.
So the majority can be wrong.
The majority can be wrong. However,
so how do you correct for that in this mega society if it's just based on democracy? Like, what if the majority votes something that is completely self-destructive?
Well,
you would just die and then call it quits? Like,
no.
Okay.
If you mess up, then yeah, you messed up, but you can still find a way. You can still find a way out of it. Every single hole, you can, even if you dig yourself into a hole like 5 miles deep, from personal experience, even if you dig yourself into a hole that you think, I can't possibly get myself out of this, there's always a way to build a ladder out.
Okay, so you just got to keep rolling with it, and the best call, even if it leads you into a hole that you might have to dig your way out of at some point, is always to go with the majority vote. Just because, like there wouldn't be any other way to do it aside from a sort of authoritarian approach that you wouldn't want to touch.
Kinda, yeah. Because if the majority of people want something, well,
what if it turns out the majority of people want Trump to be their dictator?
That's the problem.
What happens? What would you say to that?
I really don't know, because again, I am a proponent for like 100% total democracy.
Yeah.
But
obviously dictatorship is it. I was exaggerating for effect.
You're not even exaggerating that much. But yeah, I am a proponent for 100% total democracy and an opponent of things that are bad, I say I want to be.
So if the majority of people wanted that, then so be it.
I would be mad about it, and I would try to dig myself out of that hole as fast as possible. But the majority vote goes. So
okay, fair enough. So you would never want to take a sort of authoritarian approach. Do you think that your morals, because of the way you think about it, should be dictated by the majority vote? Like you should be like, oh wait, okay, so the majority of people want this. That means I should probably want that too.
No, like if. Again, morals can be anything you want.
But is there a correct way to have morals? Like, do you think you could be correct about something and the population could be wrong?
Again, it's entirely subjective. You could ask someone and be like, yes, there is a correct way of morals, and it's this.
Yeah.
And you could ask someone else and be like, yes, there is a correct way of morals, and it's this. And they could be a miles apart.
Yeah, miles apart.
So the real answer is that objectively, there is no correct set of morals. but subjectively there is.
Okay.
And that subjectiveness changes with everyone.
So, best thing to do is just go with the population, and in a sense, you're like you're being humble enough to respect that other people's opinions are just as valid as your own, something
Yes.
like that. And so, by doing that, there's a sort of self-emptying where you're okay. Whatever the population agrees on, I believe is the right way to go, something like that.
I'm personally am not like that, but
But you think that's the ideal?
well,
Because I thought I was articulating your position there. Is that not your position?
I don't know what my position is.
Okay, so it's kind of nebulous. You're still figuring it out.
It's nebulous.
Like most other college students.
Like most other everyone. It's
Most other
nebulous. I'm
everyone.
trying to figure it out.
most other everyone.
But-
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that wouldn't be a correct articulation of your perspective. Is
Not
there
really.
something you'd change, like an easy fix to make that more correct?
There is no easy fix.
With what I just said?
There,
With like the whole idea of like majority goes, and I'm kind of emptying myself to that reality or something like that? Or is that pinning you down in a very unfair way?
there's not. That's kind of like pinning me down in my own fair way, and there's no easy fix
Okay.
to it.
Well, I apologize.
No, like the easiest and probably best
Yeah.
fix would probably to like you be me for a day and see my perspective of it, but
Yeah,
we
anybody
can't
got, like,
really
a magical
we
spell or
can't
something?
really just like magically swap brains. So
Yeah, what's that one movie? I don't remember. Something
Freaky
like
Friday?
Yeah, that one. Okay, fair enough. Well, obviously you can go whenever you want. Do you want to take off now, or you?
I kind of have to. I'm
Okay.
sorry. So
Sounds good.
thank you for having me.